Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some incredibly fun battles in the Great League Remix Cup, featuring a themed team where all three Pokemon share the exact same typing, Ground and Ghost. On the lead, I'm running Runerigus with Rock Tomb and Sand Tomb as the charge moves. The safe switch is Palossand, and as the closer, I have the one and only Shadow Golurk. It goes without saying, this is absolutely not a team I'd recommend for climbing, but I was able to get some crazy wins with it. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out the triple Ground Ghost team in action in the Remix Cup. Hopping into the first match, we see a tough lead Runerigus into Shadow Dragonite. Shadow Dragonite just applies monstrous fast move pressure, and my opponent is going to strike first, going for the Dragon Claw. I will commit the shield. I'm at a potential Shadow Ball. I'm of course not running the moveset, but my opponent does not know it, and I'm able to grab a shield. I'm farming up here. My opponent is going to fire off the charge move on what would be the CMP tied to my Shadow Ball. I'm just going to let this through. Dragonite is going to win lead, and I'm going to send in Shadow Golurk and look for the Mud Slap farm down. Shadow Golurk now ahead on energy. Let's see what my opponent has in the back. Hopefully not any more flyers. They send in Cresselia, so it looks like they do not have another good response to a Ground and Ghost type Pokemon. Shadow Punch does so much damage. I'm going to send in Palossand, and they're firing off a charge move. Even if they are running Grass Knot, which most Cresselia in this meta are, I will be able to tank it. And now my opponent sends in their final Pokemon, which is Toxapex, and Toxapex has nowhere to run against the team. I'm looking to farm up. I actually throw one past the Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball does big damage. I continue to farm. My opponent plays to a CMP tie that they do not win. Sand Tomb forces the final shield, and that will be game over. I can just let this go. Shadow Golurk is going to sweep the day. In comes the Golurk, and the opponent concedes the match. We see a terrific lead in the next match, Runerigus into Toxapex. I was seeing so many Toxapex, and that's honestly why I wanted to run this theme team, because Toxapex just has absolutely nowhere to go. Opponent save switches into Vigoroth, and normally, normal types would be an absolute disaster for a team of ghost types, but the good news is Vigoroth actually does quite poorly versus ghosts. So now, I can just go straight for the Rock Tomb, and the nice thing is, this has a guaranteed attack drop. So now that I've hit them twice, they're now 2 stages debuffed, which means I can comfortably live not only the Bulldoze, but the Body Slam after, and fully commit to the farm down here. I'm going to get to leave with so much energy, and I know my opponent still has that Toxapex lurking, and Toxapex has nowhere to run. Body Slam will connect, I get the farm down, opponent sends back in the Toxapex, and I'm going to be able to make it to not 1 but 2 Sand Tombs here, and not only does this hit for super effective damage, they're going to be 2 stages debuffed. Sand Tomb connects, I send in Palossand in the back, it is Scrafty, and I'm going straight for the Sand Tomb. Let's set up some debuffs, and then we can let Shadow Golurk commit to the Mud Slap farm down. In comes Shadow Golurk. I will need to double shield here. Opponent running an insanely cool moveset, Acid Spray Scrafty. You have got to be kidding me. They go for the foul play now. I get the farm down, but I am now heavily debuffed. In comes the Toxapex, and I'm going to need to start grabbing these shields back. So I fire off the Shadow Punch, opponent will commit the shield. Now this is not enough for the Earth Power, so my opponent may honestly call this, and they do. But the good news for me is that I still have the Palossand lurking in the back. Brine will KO the Shadow Golurk, but in comes the Palossand, and it is much too healthy. I'm just going straight Sand Tomb here. Opponent, no shields the first. That just means they're getting mud shot down, as this Brine will not be lethal. Brine able to be survived, and that's a good game. We see a very tough lead in the next match, Runerigus into Dubwool. Now Dubwool of course can have access to Payback, and Payback would definitely not be good to see here, but my opponent throws after 4. This is not a Payback. They're fully walled, they're running Wild Charge, but my happiness is short-lived as they send in Lickitung, and my opponent has way too many normal types, and I have a team exclusively of ghosts. So I am going to make it to the double Rock Tomb here, so now at the very least, they are 2 stages debuffed on the Lickitung. I continue to farm up with the Runerigus. Even though they are double debuffed, Power Whip is gonna hurt, and that will KO the rune. Now I'm going to send in Palisand. Palisand, unfortunately, does not have a hard-hitting move that can hit for neutral here. I'm forced to go for the Sand Tomb, and as you can see, Sand Tomb does not do a lot. Opponent sends back in the Dubwool, so they're preserving their Lickitung for later in the game. As we know, due to the moveset they're running, they are completely walled by Palisand here. I'm just looking to farm up close to max energy. After tanking the Body Slam, I'm going to save the energy for later and send in Shadow Golurk. Shadow Golurk looking to commit to the Mud Slap farm down here. The nice thing is, all their moves are completely walled, but the bad news is Shadow Golurk is so glassy that even tanking 2 double resisted Body Slams, I'm already below half health. Back in comes Lickitung. That gives me hope that they're weak in the back. They've been so strong, 2 ground and ghost type Pokemon to start, so I just have to hope that they're going to be weak in the back. Opponent shields up a Shadow Punch. That is huge. I'm going for Shadow Punch number 2. This is double resisted, but I need damage. I am not quite able to get the farm down here. I believe this should only be the Body Slam. The question is, what do they have in the back? It's a Sandslash, and I have 100 energy on the Palisand. I go for the Sand Tomb. Opponent calls the bait, and I'm just going straight Sand Tomb here. Maybe I should full send the Shadow Ball, and my opponent calls it again. And suddenly, I think I may actually lose this. I'm firing off Sand Tomb number 3. They're shielding. We do not get the farm down. Can Golurk survive the fast move? No, it cannot. We see a terrific lead in the next match, Runerigus into Carbink. The entire team is an absolute wall to Carbink. Opponent safe switches into Dubwool, and unlike the Dubwool we saw last game, most Dubwools in this format are running Payback. And that is problematic as that would hit for massive super effective damage, so I am going to expend my first shield because I can debuff it with Rock Tombs. I'm able to make it to not 1, but 2 Rock Tombs here. Rock Tomb number 2 is going to connect, and now they are 2 stages debuffed on the Dubwool. Dubwool can fire off the Payback, but I will actually be able to tank this. Payback is going to connect. I'm farming up with the Runerigus. Unfortunately, the game ends up lagging, and I do not get my fast move through. They fire off a charge move. It is just going to be the Body Slam. I'm going to farm up a bunch of energy, switch into the Palisand so I can absorb the energy here. This way, I can debuff whatever my opponent has as their final Pokemon, and they concede the match. We see a tough lead in the next match, Runerigus into Shadow Alolan Sandslash. Ice types definitely not good for a team consisting entirely of ground and ghost type Pokemon. Interestingly enough, my opponent is running Powder Snow as the fast move instead of the Legacy Shadow Claw. Either way, it would still hit me for super effective damage. I'm going to look to farm up, actually go 1 past the potential Shadow Ball, but my opponent nevertheless is going to shield. I go for Sand Tomb number 2, hoping they overfarm, but they do not. Ice Punch will grab my final shield. From here, I mean, Sand Tomb isn't the strongest move, but they are already debuffed, so we will see a shield. I send in the Golurk. Look at the Mud Slap damage. Opponent is going to switch out and send in their Dragonair. I make it to the Shadow Punch. Shadow Punch gets the Dragonair low, and Dragonair dies with the move as Shadow Golurk proves to be too oppressive. The question will be, will they send back in the Sandslash? No, they send in Whimsicott, and this is incredibly bad. My entire team takes super effective damage not only from the Ice type Sandslash, but also the Grass type Whimsicott. This is where running a team only having the same type can definitely backfire. They're going to be firing off the Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb does quite a lot of damage. I'm farming up here with the Palisand, and I'm going for the Shadow Ball. I desperately need this to KO, but it's not going to be enough. I get the catch onto the Runerigus. Now the question will be, when are they going to send in the Sandslash? My guess is now. In comes the Sandslash. I'm able to make it to the Shadow Ball. Sand Tomb I don't think would have quite been enough to KO. Shadow Ball gets the KO. In comes the Whimsicott, and we do not make the Sand Tomb. Picking up a decent lead in the next match, Runerigus into Steelix. I'm going to stay in this matchup, and it's a Thunderfang Steelix. Oh my goodness, this is the best possible scenario, as Thunderfang will do absolutely nothing against a team of 3 ground types. Opponent sends in a Surfetch safe switch. Surfetched, of course, the counters will do nothing to my team, but of course they can have access to Leaf Blade, and Leaf Blade will add up quite a bit. I'm going to let this first move through. They go for the Night Slash. That does so much damage. I'm looking for the farm down. That's not going to happen. So I'm going to bank all the energy on the Runerigus and catch onto Palisand. They go for a Night Slash. I get the farm down here. The question will be, do we see the Steelix? No, they send in Scrafty. Last time I saw a Scrafty, I got Acid Sprayed, so I'm definitely on the lookout for some interesting Scrafty movesets. Scrafty is firing off a charge move. They have to foul play to KO here, and they do, and now that they're debuffed, you already know it is Shadow Golurk time. Golurk, these Mud Slaps adding up quite a bit, and I am going to respect the foul play. They full send the foul play, in comes the Thunderfang Steelix, and the opponent throws on alignment, giving an entire Mud Slap for free. They can debuff me with Psychic Fangs all they want, but that's not gonna make the Thunderfangs do any damage. Psychic Fangs number 2, Golurk gets the farm down. I'm debuffed, and I am worried about the counters, however, so I switch into the Runerigus, and we get the win. We see a tricky lead in the next match, Runerigus into Jellicent. I'm going to stay in this matchup because since I have Shadow Claw on the Runerigus is definitely my best answer to the Jellicent. I farm up to the potential Shadow Ball and I'm able to grab a shield from my opponent. Odds are they're probably going for the Surf here. I call the bait, and it is the Surf. That's huge. I decide to go for the Sand Tomb here. My opponent knows it's not a Shadow Ball, so they can let this through. But at this point, I'm just looking for as much Shadow Claw damage as I can possibly get, and my opponent is still forced to throw their energy. Surf will KO. I send in the Golurk. They save switch into a Shadow Machamp, and that is not a good response to a Golurk. Golurk will be able to tank the double resisted cross chop. I'm looking for the farm down. I can't quite get it, so I'm going to save all the energy and catch onto the tankier Palisand. Palisand shakes off that damage like it's nothing and now has a small energy lead. The question will be, do we see that final Pokemon or do we see the Jellicent? Seeing the Jellicent gives me hope that they're weak in the back. I'm firing off the Sand Tomb. This will not KO, but it will get that Jellicent low. I'm going to shield, and the good thing is I should be able to debuff whatever's in the back with a bunch of Sand Tombs. In the back, it's the Escavalier, and honestly, I had a game before where I didn't full send and it lost me the game, so this time I full send the Shadow Ball, it connects, and the opponent concedes the match. Speaking of Escavalier, we see it on the lead in the next match. Entire team does do very well here, but the team struggles a lot against Shadow Charizard. I'm going to farm up to the Rock Tomb. I'm actually going to bait with the Sand Tomb here, and my opponent is going to commit the shield. My opponent is going to farm up to a Dragon Claw plus a Blast Burn. This is a pretty obvious bait, but I chicken out at the last second. I shield, and that's going to cost me both of my shields. I definitely should have read their play and called the bait there, but by shielding, I now have no shields remaining for the match. Let's see, are they going to send back in the Escavalier or do we see the third Pokemon? They send in the Escav. I bank 100 energy. And I'm going to bring in Palisand and in comes Jellicent. No baits here. I'm going straight for the Shadow Ball. Do they know the moveset? They do. Them shielding the Shadow Ball and getting the perfect overfarm is honestly really problematic for me. They're going to fire off the Shadow Ball. That's going to KO. And I don't have Shadow Ball on my Runerigus. I can send back in the Rune and begin to fire off Rock Tombs, but Rock Tomb, of course, is not going to do the same kind of damage. I just need damage, so I'm firing off the Sand Tomb here, thinking that if I can get debuffs, maybe I can farm it down with the Golurk. They can KO with the Surf here, so Jellicent will do exactly that. Surf will be lethal, looking for the farm down with the Golurk, and I get the farm down. Back in comes the Escavalier. Escavalier firing off the charge move. This is going to be close. They go for the Mega Horn. That does so much damage. I need this Shadow Punch to KO. Shadow Golurk, please. Shadow Punch barely does not get the KO. We have same leads in the final match, Runerigus into Escavalier, and the opponent is staying in, which is really good news for me. They're going for the Drill Run. I can tank a Drill Run pretty comfortably. Runerigus is one of the tankier Pokemon on this team. I go for the Rock Tomb, and my opponent makes a nice catch onto Dragalge. I'm now going to send in Palisand, as I know Palisand will be able to absorb an Aqua Tail here, where Shadow Golurk would get absolutely destroyed. Aqua Tail is going to connect. I'm farming up with the Palisand. I'm expecting they're going to call the Sand Tomb bait, so I'm going to full send the Shadow Ball. Opponent actually commits the shield. That's a bit surprising to me. It looks like they're potentially going for the farm down, and I'm going for Shadow Ball number 2, looking for both shields or switch. Opponent commits the shield. They look for the farm down, but Palisand makes another Sand Tomb, refusing to die. KOing Dragalge, and the opponent concedes the match. All in all, I had a ton of fun getting to run this team. As I mentioned at the start, I definitely do not recommend this team if you're looking to climb the ranks. Running a more balanced team is definitely the way to go, but as far as teams where all the Pokemon share the same type go, I felt like this was a pretty decent one. Like, it's definitely not a team that's going to climb elo, but I was able to go pretty consistently about average with this team, which, hey, for having absolutely no coverage whatsoever in terms of typings, I am pretty happy with. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and a big thank you as well for 46,000 subscribers. That is absolutely crazy. If you're enjoying the content, please consider subscribing. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.